No, seriously, joking. We're here. Of course, I got my man with me, Nube One. Nube, how you feeling?
I'm good. I'm good. What's up?
That's what's up, man. So, tell us what you've been working on this week.
Uh, since the whole U.S. Post Office fracas is going on right now, I decided to look up some information about the history of the privatization of the post office. And there's pretty long, somewhat long history, and has unfortunately, uh, you know, Democrats and Republicans are both have a hand in pushing towards privatization.
Okay.
So yeah, so it started in about 1910. The Postal Savings Bank established a public savings alternative to private banking system, and it particularly grew until like 1930 when they had the financial crashes and
Okay.
things like that. But then at some point, the American Bankers Association formed a special committee on postal savings legislation to block any extension of the new service. And because it was becoming a national alternative to private banking at that period.
Okay.
So, and ironically, the most America's most popular president, FDR, actually helped private banking win with installing the FDIC deposit insurance, and that the fact that you had the federal treasury backing any lost money from private banking started to sink that aspect of the post office. And I never knew about that there was a postal banking service at the time. So basically, in a long story short, 1966, the postal savings system was liquidated.
Okay.
Now, in 1970, Nixon changed the postal service from a department of the executive branch to a public corporation and cut it from federal funding, and which eventually, provoked the national post worker strike in the 80s. I don't know. I have a dad that worked for the post office, so I remember when there was that strike in the 80s.
Okay.
And so that started the slow, death by a thousand cuts to the post office. And I'm sure there were other things, but I didn't find anything else to like. The big death blow was in 2006 when Congress passed the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act during the Bush administration, and it was sponsored by Republican Virginia it was Republican from the House of Representatives, Tom Davis, and then we had two co-sponsors, Henry Waxman, who was a California Dem, Danny Davis, who was an Illinois Dem, and John McHugh, who was a Republican from New York. And it passed in the House unanimously through the Democratic Party, and it was the only dissensions were like 20 Republicans, which was super weird. Like, because basically, from my whole understanding, was that the Republicans were the ones pushing privatization more than anyone else. But so that was kind of strange to me, but an interesting kind of twist. So it passed in the Senate through a voice vote unanimously. So it was kind of like how this last stimulus, the original stimulus, the CARES package passed, where it was like, you vote for it or you vote against it, but you're not on the record either way, so you can kind of give yourself some type of cover.
Okay.
So and that was basically what happened. Among the other things, they had to make sure they had all the 75 years, they needed to have all the retirement bonuses, not only retirement bonuses, but their whole retirement paid and benefits up to for 75 years, which puts them like in the hole for like 5 billion a year. It costs about 5 billion a year to do that. So yeah, that's interesting. And so after that, other notable instances was Obama administration closed like 3,700 post offices, and he had 3 appointees to the board of governors. And that's the post office board of governors. They kind of, run the post office, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that they appoint the postmaster general. So he had three appointees that got blocked by Bernie Sanders, and it was an interesting thing because a guy on the Twitter tried to paint it like Bernie Sanders was for privatization, but it turned out there was 3. There was James Miller, who was Ronald Reagan's one of Ronald Reagan's cabinet members, who wanted to privatize the Postal Service.
Okay.
Another guy, Mickey Barnett, who was a Republican payday lending lobbyist, and Stephen Crawford, who wanted to end Saturday mail and slash jobs, pensions, and healthcare benefits. So now, and at the same time, and Bernie Sanders was one of the people who was in the House at the time during the Bush administration that voted for the original bill, the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act.
Okay.
So it was pretty enlightening, but also disappointing to see the service get kind of slowly skewered, and finding out that it was both parties that was doing it. So other than that, I found out people who benefit from privatization would be like UPS, FedEx, Pitney Bowes, who does like a lot of sorting, paper sorting. There's a Boston consulting group that pays for paying for studies to explore privatization, and also the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC, who's into some interesting stuff as well. And
ALEC is into a lot of different things. Quick question: when you, just out of curiosity, when you looked up and seen how Nixon involvement, did you find anything that what was his political motivation in making the moves that he made?
That's actually a good question, but I didn't find anything about that specifically, like why he did that. And I could just go off, from the gut instinct. I mean, it has been, regardless of both parties being involved in it. I know it's generally has been a Republican, or at least a right wing program to privatize and kind of like cut up and break up the pieces and sell them around to any of our public services. So
I would be very interested to find out. I know you said, which I found very shocking, and DeJoy. I know that he is a very big donor. The money that he had invested in, privatizing the post office, I was unaware of until you had brought it up in the previous show. But I would be very interested to find out how many other people that are in legislation that also are heavily invested and would greatly, profit from breaking up the post office in general. And looking around, I couldn't find in no other entity, man. You know what I mean? Within like the federal government, man, that has like the stipulations and for especially when we're talking about retirement and future, you know what I mean? Bills and everything when it comes down to retirement bonuses, and everything else that has to be paid up front 75 years in advance. And I
Yeah.
believe during like the hearing
Pension.
for the joy, the
Hmm.
I believe it was one of the congressmen alluded to the fact that the post office did very well during the first quarter and during like this so-called pandemic,
Right.
whereas
Right.
they have over $1 billion on hand in cash on hand. They did so well. But at the same time, they're even with the great amount of money that they've made, you know what I mean, more money already in the first half of the year than they did last year altogether. But even with that, they're still in the hole by another $20 million, $20 billion. I'm sorry,
Right.
they're still in the hole by another $20 billion, and you have to start wrapping your mind around like the type of money the post office as itself. You know what I mean when you're saying that it has to be self-funded on the
Right.
surface, the funding that it does and the business that it does, and being in delivering packages for UPS, delivering packages for FedEx, delivering packages for Amazon, and so on and so forth. Man, they are making a killing, man. They are doing a phenomenal job. But no one, and even now, what is this weekend? The House came back to vote on a $25 billion deal for like the post office.
Only, yeah, only to vote for that. Right.
But my thing is, you wouldn't have to do all of this stuff if you just repealed the law that you put in place that's handcuffing the post office.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Right. And that's the, some of the criticisms people have of, the Obama administration, especially at the points when they had a supermajority for, a few months in the, in the House and Senate. There's things that they could have overturned, and if they had the political will to do that. I don't know. At the same time, I'm like, I don't know what else they had going on, but that seems like something that would be a priority if you were concerned about keeping, the public goods afloat. You know, because other than that, it was fine. It was solvent. They said that if it was put on the public market right now, it would be like number four, be like a number four, company in on the stock market, and also
Wow.
would generate roughly like 40 something $billion a
Gracious.
year. Yeah, 48 billion a year. 42, something like that. I have the paper somewhere, but I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but that, and yeah, it's just weird because it's also these other companies like FedEx and UPS still use like anywhere from like 40 to 60% of their packages are still processed through, through the post office. And I think with Amazon is like 90%. And it's interesting because Amazon, in some ways, kind of helped save the post office in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when we have some ideas about certain certain issues and certain things that happen in the news, it's interesting when you kind of like see the nuance behind it because most people are like I don't like Amazon. Amazon's not my favorite company, but it's the most convenient
Yeah.
and price it gives you kind of the best price. But to me, I always kind of looked at it like this. You took a Walmart model and you just put it on the internet. So you like destroyed all these other companies in the process of building your company up. And yeah, but and that's one of the positives about the company is that it's actually helping prop up the post office right now. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, that I find it very interesting because the president has gone on about how Amazon is destroying the post office and they're not paying a fair share and they need to pay more to use like the post office and so on and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. But at the same time, while he's criticizing Amazon for using the post office for their own gain, he's also, what I mean, turned the corner and tried to rally against the post office for his own gain, which strategically doesn't really make any sense when you look at the fact that he lost popular vote by over 2 million votes and he's still in office. So to
Mm-hmm.
slow down the mail and to go back and be like, oh, we're going to remove, what I mean, all like the sorting machines, go back and do, what I mean, make them sort by the hand. We're going to do this and doing all these different things to try to slow up the post office. On the back end of that, what I mean, you're generating an incredible amount of overtime that has to go into like the major distribution centers. You know what I mean? That's set up, that sends out the mail to the smaller post offices. And on top, then when it gets to the smaller post offices, of course, it has to be you know, it has to be distributed again because now you've gone from like the big hub to the smaller hub, but even that hub, you know what I mean, they have their own routes that they have to go. So the mail has to be sorted again. And when you start taking these machines out and you're slowing down the process, you are actually not only, what I mean, all for like because you want to stop people from voting by mail, you are also affecting the economy because a lot of things because people as we still see a lot of people are still at home, a lot of people aren't going to the malls, a lot of people aren't going into like these box stores, these brick and mortar stores. They're still ordering lots of things off the internet, whether it's through Amazon, Target, Walmart, eBay, whatever it is. A lot of people still, and a lot of people have been shopping online for years now. So when you start, what I mean, trying to slow down, what I mean, the mail, you're slowing down the economy because now people are
Oh
going to
yeah.
be like, do I really want to wait, 2 weeks for this? Or should I just go to the store, pay the extra $5 and have it right now? Do I really want to wait, all this time for it to get from point A to point B? And if you are a small business that relies on mailing out your products and everything else, this is, this is going to affect your business greatly. So when on a small scale the media is focusing on how this is going to affect the post office and your right to vote. On a larger scale, this affects the economy greatly because it's going to slow
Right.
down a lot of things. It's going to slow down sales, it's going to slow down people being able to get what it is they need to get and so on and so forth. And voting on a bill to fund another 25 billion for like the post office is great for them to cover, what I mean, what the next 5 years. Did you say it was like 5 billion a year they needed in order to cover future
Right.
retirements or
Right.
something? Unless you get rid of that bill and the post office is able to, and keep in mind the post office, U.S. United States Postal Service is responsible for 3/4 of the world's mail. And even doing 3/4 of the world's mail, they are still not able to generate $5 billion worth of parcels and services. I mean, it's pretty much impossible, to accomplish what it is that they've been put up against.
Right. Yeah. And that was the whole plan for it. But another factor to think of with Trump that was expressed to me before too was this doesn't affect the economy. It's still on voting. Since Republicans generally have like an older voting block, voting base, a lot of those people do vote by mail.
Yeah.
So you're also depressing your own your own voters by doing that same thing. So but that's why that just goes to show you, like, that's why I don't pay attention to dude, because he just talks, and he doesn't think things all the way through. He's too easily led by like the last person talking to them, and yeah, so it just doesn't make it doesn't make any sense. Even if you're whether you're trying to win, whether you don't want to be president anymore, whatever it is, whether you just want to have some type of grievance uh, for your fans or your fans or your base
Mm-hmm.
to have towards the voting process, of which there are problems. I don't want to get into
Yeah.
my view of the voting process right now. Like, yeah, everybody should have a grievance with that, but yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, just the fact that, you know what I mean, and when you look at when we start talking about privatizing the post office and all this money that's already been set aside, because this process started, I think you said 2006, correct?
The act started.
So you that's we're about 14 years into this, you know. And I know when I read over the bill, there had to be a certain amount or a certain percentage or whatever that already had to be transferred over to like the Department of Treasury by 2017. And
Right.
going forward, when you start thinking that they already have $1 billion on hand from this year, cash on hand from this year alone, you think about how much money that has been that is built up. And if you decide to go and privatize the US postal system, what happens to that money? Because as we have seen in so many other industries, when one company is broken up into smaller companies, the people that really pay the price are the postal workers that have worked. And you know what I mean? You imagine you're only a year or two away from retirement and they decide they're going to privatize it. That money is pretty much gone because I don't trust. And looking at how these type of things have been handled, whether state or federal legislation over the last 20 years, you're done. You're done because they're not going to have any protections in there for you. And one of the biggest things that you can look at as to show you that there are no protections for you was the what was the name of the bank, man, that got found out for opening up all like these false accounts and everything, and they were able and they generated Wells Fargo, and they generated a crazy amount of money off of like this fraud. The people at the branches all got fired. The CEO got some ridiculous millions and millions. I'm not talking about one or two. We talking double digits bonus off of fraud that he was able to walk away with. And everybody else at the branch level got fired.
Right.
That money didn't go back to the people that got defrauded. That money went to him, to the board, to the CEOs, to the board members, to um, um, the shareholders, the major shareholders, anyway.
Right.
You know, the people that are actually on the ground and doing the work, nothing. And we've seen the same thing happen with the airlines. We've seen the same thing happen with a lot of enterprises that the president used to run. So it wouldn't be surprising that if and when, you know what I mean, this doomsday, it's a doomsday clock that's pretty much just been counting down, happens, that these people are going to get screwed over. They may be able to pick up a job with UPS or FedEx or Laser Ship or Pitney Bowes or whatever. You know what I mean? But the 20, 25, 15, 19, whatever it is years that they've put into this and they've put into like their retirement, I would love to see what happens to with that and if there are any protections in that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'd like to think that they have some legal recourse and some protections, but when you're talking about, greedy people,
Yeah.
and there's, a large amount of money just sitting there,
Oh man.
it's supposed to be for, how many people have lost their pensions and benefits before
Yeah.
on, smaller mergers and, shutdowns and things like that. So
Yeah.
I don't have any confidence that they'd be cool by any stretch. They get like thrown to the wolves, and then it's like, all right, go Social Security. When Social Security would be like the buttress to their pension. You know what I'm saying? And then also that means that they, whatever other benefits, health benefits and things like that were part of their retirement package are, under siege as well. So yeah, it's just.
Because when Marvell went under, which gave birth to AT&T, MCI, and a lot of like these other telecom companies, how many of those people do you think was able to keep like their pensions or their shares in the company just got transferred over to AT&T?
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, man. But it's
money only seems to go one way, in general. But when that gets, when these services get demolished and privatized, it definitely goes, only one way.
Money usually only moves laterally.
Right.
Yeah. Which.
And that's if you're, and that's if you're. So you better hope that you're upper management. That's one way you can get lateral money. Other than that,
it's a wrap. Yeah. I didn't see because they were just talking about it this weekend, and I was looking. I really didn't see what was decided. I know that they said that they were working on passing some type of bill to save like the post office, but I was more interested in what their future plan was. And actually, if they, because it's one thing to say, "Oh, we're going to dump money into it," if you know you're going to get that money back.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something else to dump money into it and say, like, we're going to try to actually help this, survive. And like you said before, it's a public service. And for whatever reason, you know what I mean? And it's a public service that taxpayers aren't really paying. The only people that are actually paying for this service are the people that are using this service. So it's not like, oh, I got to pay a school tax and I don't have kids. No, you only have to pay the service if you actually use the post office. If you're actually sending mail through the post office, because you receive mail all day, that's not costing you a dime. When you go to, send out mail, that's what's actually costing you. And for people to get behind it, and you have to think about the millions of people that are going to be, if you think it's bad now with unemployment, with each month, everybody, each month since, what has it been, March, another million workers have been added to unemployment. And now you're talking about like a whole pseudo federal, I don't even know how to classify, postal workers, because in one end they're actually federal employees, but on the other end they're actually not. They're in some type of weird limbo.
Yeah, somebody called it like a quasi-federal entity.
And I don't think most people know that. That.
No. They think it's part of the federal. They get money. They think that there's money allotted to them every year in the federal budget, and they're taking that money and just pissing it away, and that's why they're not insolvent. So they're like, hey, so let UPS or FedEx do it, and then you find out that a piece of mail that you can send for like 50 something cents ends up being $20.
Exactly.
Or, $15.
Easily.
18. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, that. And then you find out that, a piece of mail that you can send for like 50 something cents ends up being $20. Or, $15.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, that. And then you And don't try to send a package that, so if a piece of mail is only that much, a package could be up to like $35, $40, and that could be your gas money, all type, anything,
Yeah.
gas money, lunch money for the kids, whenever schools actually go back into the world goes back into some kind of normalcy as far as traveling and going back to school and work and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, man. It's insane right now. So I think the what Nancy Pelosi did was cool, particularly good optics. But like you, I'm thinking when I think about how much is really owed, what the post office actually owes, it seems like it's more of a band-aid, temporary band-aid put on it, and then we'll see what we'll do later, or we'll do nothing, or we'll just do this until the news cycle dies down, and then we can kind of let it fade back, or if we're serious, we can actually affect some change and like free the post office. But I don't have any confidence in that either, because they had opportunities to do that on the Democratic Party side too. So,
Right. Well, like you
but it's
said, it was a
Democrats or
bipartisan bill,
Republicans.
so
Yeah, that's like. So then you got start looking at the donors and things like that, and that's when you go down different rabbit holes, and then you find things you don't really want to find out about some uh, politicians that you may like. And you just be like, oh, okay, they got like we wouldn't have found out about the Postmaster General, what's his name, DeJoy.
yeah.
Uh, we wouldn't have found out about his holdings, except that his wife was trying to be a ambassador, trying to get an ambassadorship, so she had to, show all their financial holdings, and it's like, oh, we got, over $100,000 in, various companies that are competition to the post office. It's like, wow. And it's still not a big story, and that's the weird part, because it's like, what's a bigger story is, the Hollywood couple that just got a couple months in prison for spending like $100,000 to cheat their kid into Ivy League school.
Which
You know
I
what I'm
couldn't care
saying?
less about.
Right. And it's like, okay, like that's foul, whatever. But we're talking about something, people who have a large financial stake in dismantling a great public service, and they don't talk about it. So that tells me that there's a lot of people in the government that have that kind of money, or have those secret ties, kind of just waiting. Because I'm like, hey, I mean, I get it. I was been looking into investing, and I got friends that invest in stuff, and you start thinking about it, and you're like, I can see how people, because it's just like you're transferring numbers, and it's just like, oh, this company here is doing well, or I got a tip that this company's on the rise, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'll throw my money in there and double, triple it, whatever, and then it turns out this company may be like a private prison, maybe like doing stuff in private prisons, and you're just like, well, it's making me money, so I prefer not to. I prefer not to be, contributing to, ICE killing, kids and, killing kids in cages, but it's profitable. So what do you want me to do? You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Like you said. Yeah, like you said, once you start looking in that, you get down like a whole nother rabbit hole because then it would open up the door to the private investments that Congress has that I
Right.
feel is a complete um, sham because you know who's getting government contracts because you vote on
Right.
So it's very so
right,
so very easy for you to go ahead and invest in that company because you
right,
know
right.
they have a contract or they're about to get a contract. They're going to be awarded a contract. You know, I mean, but anyway, that's
And
beside.
somehow it's legal to be able to,
I mean,
you
yeah,
know, there's some level of legality that's allowed
yeah,
for people to do that, you know. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
that's
everything is legal when you make the law. So
right, right. But yeah,
even when you
it's
don't make the
crazy.
laws and you break the law, it still turns out to be legal. But yeah,
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah.
but yeah, man, like I seriously and I'm interested to see if this whole topic comes up. You know what I mean during like the debates. A lot of states are looking to move to try to get ballots out. I know Maryland. The governor has already said that he wants, whether people go to the polls or not, he wants ballots sent out, you know what I mean, in such and such time ahead of time. You know what I mean?
Right,
So if you don't, because not only are we talking about, you know what I mean, the slowing down of the mail process, you know, you're also talking about, you're still telling people, you know what I mean, oh, well, you have to social distancing. You have to wear your mask. We're talking about November, and depending on where you are, like for here, it's a crapshoot as to what the weather is going to be. You know what I mean in November. You know what I mean. Sometimes in November, man, hey man, it's great outside. You know what I mean. It's like 50, 60 degrees, maybe. You know what I mean. That's tolerable. Other times in November, hey man, it could be snowing outside. You know what I mean? You don't really know. And when you start talking about distancing and you got people standing outside, and then you have people, like you said, that are already suffering with some type of illness. They can't get out. You already have people that don't have the whereabouts to be able to get out because then they're going to have to end up taking public transportation, you know what I mean, to get down to, you know what I mean, the polling place, so on and so forth. I mean, it's just with Corona already making it hard for people to get to the polls to vote, he's doing people a very disingenuous service by slowing it down. Even his own people, his own followers.
right,
You know what I mean? And again, like I said, I don't even understand what the reasoning behind it is, but I guess that would be too much to try to understand why, because you already lost the popular vote and got in. That's the part that I can't. That's like why are you going through this whole process and making it? You know what I mean? Making people scared to go and do one. You know what I mean? Something that people have been doing for decades. For decades. Why are you making it a problem when it's not a problem? You're talking, oh well, mail fraud, this, that, and the third, and he's talking about mail fraud, but voter fraud. But voter fraud is being registered in two different states to vote, which he was. He was
right.
registered in two different states. Not only him, but his children. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They were,
children, some other people in his administration as well,
and but you,
and more. Right.
but again, you know what I mean. I would like to see this come up in like the debates and hear what at least what they say they're going to do, because I don't trust, you know what I mean, the Democrats to ever follow through with anything that means that it's going to benefit the people. Just like I don't think that the Republicans are ever going to follow through with anything that's actually going to benefit the people. But I'm interested in seeing how they spin it when you start talking about the
Right.
post office. If it comes up, oh, we need to do this, this, and this, when clearly, if you see that, you know what I mean, the certain bills as you have laid out since like the early 1900s, the laws that have been passed to pretty much cut the legs off of the post office, why not just pass a law to stop it? Or even repeal a law that just stops it, case closed. You know what I mean? It's a done deal. It seems so simple to fix, but yet they make it seem like it's much more complicated than what it actually is. And this goes back to a conversation that you and I had privately before when I said that unfortunately a lot of people just aren't educated on what the legislative body of this country actually does and what they're
Right.
actually doing. And the vast majority of the time, it's not what they say they're doing. They're doing something different. they say they're doing, oh, we got to get back to save the post office. We got to get back to save this. We got to get back and do this, get back and do this. But on the flip end, they're not. Like you said, they're just putting a band-aid, on the gunshot. Or multiple stab wounds, you get one band-aid, and it's just,
Right.
it's an ongoing problem that like I said, the doomsday clock is started. And it's just a countdown, man. So, yeah. Any
I
closing
mean, that's
thoughts?
why.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another example why the people got mad at Nina Turner, who was a big surrogate for Bernie Sanders in both of his, runs for president. And she was recently on Anderson Cooper's show, and she was talking about progressives, and he was asking her if Bernie supporters were going to support Biden, you know, and she basically said like Bernie was a spark, the movement is a fire, so we have core tenets that we're pushing for, Medicare for all, free public college, Green New Deal, so on and so on. And, basically we're going to have to fight two dragons. We'll have to fight the, neo-fascist or slash neoconservative dragon, and also the neoliberal dragon, which is personified by the, Democratic leadership, including Biden, that is going to be, that ends up pushing some of these austerity measures that cut social services, and they also secretly are more into privatization than having institutions for public good, things like that. So that's what I agree with her on that term, because it's this is a prime example of neoliberals and neocons slash neo-fascists who are trying to get rid of a important public good that's been around before the founding of the country. So that's that's my take on it. Yeah.